Hello again, everyone. Dave Benson here, Principal Advisor for CPPS, the Center for Personal Protection and Safety. I want to talk for a few minutes a little bit about the components of a comprehensive workplace violence prevention program, the importance of each component and how they connect, the nexus, if you will, and then how you actually apply it in your day-to-day operations. So, to kick things off, let's talk a little bit about core components of an effective team. Policy development, a leadership commitment, threat assessment and management team, otherwise known as BTAM, training and awareness, effective reporting mechanisms, incident response and recovery, and then how you leverage the use of technology in support of your program, and then the desire for constant evaluation and improvement. So we'll talk about these in a little more detail. So a comprehensive workplace violence and prevention program is connective tissue, if you will, between the organization, how they assess threats, how the information is reported, what they do about them, and then how they track this information, both from a preventative standpoint, which is extremely important, but also from a response standpoint. Because if you've listened to anything I've had to say over the past few years on the subject, there is no such thing as a perfect security program. Likewise, there is no such thing as a perfect or extremely robust, comprehensive workplace violence prevention program that guarantees you'll have no violence. And so you have to have three components in place: a readiness component, which is awareness and training, policies and procedures and the developing of those, a response capability. We know that despite our best efforts, bad things can happen to good people and good organizations, so we have to be prepared to respond to a potential imminent or critical situation. And then a recovery phase, which really is tying in your business resilience, your business recovery continuity program to this overall program. And a gap in any of these pieces means that your program is not as good as it should be, number one. And then number two, we could have a potential incident that we missed. So let's walk through them a little bit again. Policy development, the rules of the road. What's appropriate in your organization? What's not appropriate in your organization? What is workplace violence? Why is it important to you in the organization? What to report, how to report, who to report that to, and then equally important is what expectations your stakeholders, your company, your customers, employees may have of what we're going to do with that information. So policy development, doing an assessment, being very honest with yourself. Are there gaps in your program? What do you need to plug up? Most organizations have bits and pieces of this. It's been my experience from having done this for a long time that what we lack is a nexus, a tying in of each different component. Again, assessing that, policy development. And then the second piece that should go without saying is a leadership commitment. Believe it or not, I have worked with clients that are very enthusiastic at the mid-management level to keep their organizations safe and secure, but they're less inclined to get approval from the top. And this is critical because putting together programs take time. You just don't wave a magic wand. And if you don't get the resources and philosophical support that you need from the top of the organization, you're not going to have an effective program. Picture a workplace violence committee, if you will, passes on information on concerning behavior to the behavioral threat assessment team. They come up with an assessment. They make a recommendation to the top of the organization and what might be done, and it stops right there because they either disagree or they don't understand. And so that's why when we talk at CPPS, at the center, when we talk about a pyramid, at the very top of the pyramid is executive training. Understanding that that's extremely important. Everybody has to understand their role from the bottom of the pyramid all the way up to the top. So policy development, leadership, commitment should be the cornerstones of what you're trying to accomplish. Training and awareness in general. I talked about this before. There's key components that we need to see in a best practice workplace violence prevention and intervention training program. First of all, it should be for general awareness for everybody in the organization. And then very often we recommend specific training for leaders or specialized groups within the organization because they really wear two hats. They're part of the leadership team, but they're also rank and file employees and stakeholders. So we need to understand the difference between understanding what to report and then who to report it to. And then as leaders, once you're receiving that information, what do you do with it? And why it's so important that we pass this information on in a timely fashion. Another piece is your multidisciplinary threat assessment and management team, otherwise known as BTAM. Many of you call them threat management teams, threat assessment teams, critical incident response teams. It's less important what you call it and more important what the principles behind it are. So of all the training, and again to reiterate, we talked about general awareness, leadership, manager training. The threat assessment and threat management team training is by far the most complex, the most comprehensive, and a vital component of that nexus, if you will, between getting the information, assessing the likelihood of violence, what's the difference between making a threat and posing a threat, and then coming up with an intervention strategy that can be passed on throughout the organization to become effective. Now, as I said before, incident response and recovery is also a critical component of this, because while we really advocate prevention in a comprehensive workplace violence prevention program, you're gonna miss things. Sometimes you're not aware of stuff. What happens if you get a situation where you know about information at literally the 11th hour and they may be planning to do harm to themselves or to others or to the organization? So we have to be resilient. We have to be part of that process to understand how we respond depending on the nature of the problem, what resources are available, if you will, and then putting it all together and being agile enough to kind of bounce back and forth depending on the nature and severity of the scenario. And so just as a reminder, the compliance documents, the American International Standard on Workplace Violence Prevention of 2020, the OSHA Directive on Workplace Violence Prevention, both require that you have active assailant plans as part of your comprehensive all discipline or all hazards approach. From an organizational standpoint, but then all the way down to the individual sites, if you will, and then taking it one step further down into individual response. And bouncing back to our training component, one of the things that is absolutely essential when you do training at the general awareness training, in addition to what to report, how to report, who to report it to, and what you can expect once that's done, is how to respond in a potential imminent threat. From an individual standpoint, from a campus or building standpoint, and then all the way up to the enterprise, to the organization. Another interesting component that's becoming more and more important, that maybe once upon a time we considered it to be nice to have, is leveraging technology and keeping your organization safe and secure. And what can that look like? That can be anything from your physical security program, access control, cameras, visitor policies, procedures, escort policies, surveillance detection programs, maybe a guard force. All these things are important, but when we're trying to put together a comprehensive program, what are we looking for? How can we leverage that? Now, I hearken to point out, relying totally on technology, and there is some good stuff out there, we'll talk about it in a few minutes, is not advisable. We still need to have the expertise, the human factor. That's why the behavioral threat assessment training is important. That's why the overall workplace violence prevention and intervention training is absolutely critical. It all has to tie together. We never want to make an assessment based upon a computer printout, but it can help us assess. It can help us build the protocols that we have in place and help us understand why we come to a certain threat level. What the difference is, as I said before, between posing a threat and making a threat. Because posing a threat means there's some wherefore-all. It's my expression. I probably should copyright it. There's some there. Planning, organization, specific targeting. Anybody can say anything, and it happens. I always say that talk is cheap, and it's not that we don't pay attention to that. It's just that we have to understand and process all the evidence in this structured professional judgment approach that we use as part of comprehensive threat management programs. So we can determine the validity, potential level, and what we need to do about it. And some other technology that's become really helpful, although it's in its early phases, is artificial intelligence, AI. While I don't advocate relying solely on AI to come up with a threat rating, doing your research, doing your due diligence, combining best practices, what you're seeing in other locations, other cases that you might have, the analytics piece of your workplace violence prevention and intervention program is absolutely a scenes changer, a deal changer in a positive way. But again, we're leveraging, we're not relying. Conversely, having software-related threat management, workplace violence prevention, secure software that you can do your work and due diligence within a secure platform is also important. And whether you do that organically, your organization has already the expertise to build something, or you use something off the shelf, there's some really good products out there. And while I don't endorse those products, specifically, I encourage you to realize there's some threat management, workplace violence prevention, intervention software out there that really is helpful in having you do your job as we move forward. The final piece to this that I don't think is done enough is constant evaluation and assessment of your program. There is no such thing as a perfect program. There never will be. We can always do a little bit better than before. Even if you're the most robust program in our portfolio at the center, and we have some really strong ones, there is what my old colleague Roger Aldridge used to call fine-tuner knobs that you can make it even better, take it into the next level. Constantly assess if the policies and procedures are still relevant for your organization, if the protocols that you put in place, such as anonymous reporting, is that working? Is it properly advertised? Things like employee assistance programs, how well known is it? How effective is it? How likely are people going to consider utilizing it? We should be constantly assessing in the context of where we are within an organization. Because the threat scenario constantly changes. The art of threat assessment and threat management evolves as well, but we have certain established protocols that are recognized to be the most effective way to look at this, assessing the likelihood of violence and then coming up with an intervention strategy. So we really need to evolve with the prevalent landscape, if you will, and come up with that comprehensive program. What happens if one or more of these pieces are missing? Let's say you have not done an assessment. You don't know what you don't know as far as what's happened in the past to the organization, where you're likely to be going, where some of the challenges are. And so you're already at a disadvantage. So having that in place is very critical. Likewise with your reporting requirements. Are they well established? Is it part of your initial orientation and then periodic workplace violence prevention intervention training regimen, if you will? Do people know what to report, how to report, who to report it to? I've said this several times, but it's extremely important. You know, see something, say something is a nice, sticky way of looking at things, but we like to say at the center, see what, say what, to who. So make sure everybody understands their respective role from the top of the organization to the bottom of the organization, and that there's that intersection, if you will, and synergy between those. Your comprehensive threat management team, what does that look like? Have you had any changes in personnel? We recommend, you know, once you have your initial tranche of training, then every year or so, do some refresher training. Make sure that everybody is up to speed on what the protocols are for the team based upon your unique culture as an organization, but also how maybe things have changed and how you might have to reassess and look at those. The best organizations are the ones that look holistically, how are we doing, what can we do better? And then I still think one of the biggest challenges for organizations is the comprehensive plans. Make sure that you look at those. Make sure they reflect your organization. For example, the emphasis now on active assailant is very important. Having that as part of your quiver, if you will, of crisis management planning, and understand what it is, what it isn't. What's the difference between crisis management and threat management, and then cyber, an insider threat, and make sure that you have connectivity between through all those groups. And then finally, your executive. Do they understand what we're trying to accomplish? Is there a role that they play or should play in the effectiveness in this overall program? And the biggest challenge I see with C-suites, particularly if they've been a client for a while and they've had a change in leadership, is that they don't have the full understanding. I basically had a conversation with C-suite personnel for one of our clients who were very confused on how I could assess, as a certified threat manager, a particular situation as a potentially low threat for targeted and intentional violence, yet because what was said was so hideous, so heinous, that people are terrified. And let me point out, we're seeing more and more of this. We've seen this in the wake of the U.S. healthcare CEO assassination. People are saying awful things. Well, again, the reason we have these protocols in place is because we want to be able to effectively assess what's the difference between making a threat, which frankly anybody can do, and posing a threat, which has other components in that, not just behavior, organization, planning, targeting, that type of thing. And I found that once we had this conversation and there was a better understanding throughout the C-suite, there was a much better clarity, if you will, on what we're trying to accomplish and how to do that. So we've talked about an awful lot. This is a longer than normal video, but there's a lot of components to this. I appreciate, and we at the center appreciate all the viewers and watch us on the YouTube channel and other channels. Love to get some feedback from you. Again, there is no substitute for having a comprehensive workplace violence prevention and intervention program. If there's any questions at all, reach out to info@cpps.com. We'd love to see your comments in the YouTube channel, or you can reach out to me specifically at dave.benson@cpps.com. Thank you for viewing. Keep up that great work. It's important work, and stay safe.